Well, hello friends. In this video, I will be talking regarding tensor and tensor spaces. So you see, till now what we were discussing about is that how the structure we are building will help finally understand the physics of general relativity. So we started with a set M, and then we said this set can be given a structure of topology. So this topology structure depended on the fact that we need to choose from the power set of this set, we need to choose certain sets that follow certain criteria. And once we have given the topology, we have a topological space. And given the topological space, now we can define notions of continuity and homeomorphisms. So these are the structure preserving maps of open sets. So once we discuss the continuity based on the topology, we can move on and say that if I have a topological space such that at every point it looks like a space of RD. So given, suppose you have a sphere, and if you are a very small object on a sphere like an insect, the insect will see the sphere as a plane at that point. So the sphere is a manifold of dimension 2 because it resembles to a R2 plane, which is of so I have this R2 here. So I ask that what does this set M equipped with this topology locally look like, which is equivalent to asking about does there exist homeomorphisms from this set to the RD set, whichever set we are talking about. And then if the answer is yes, then that set along with that topology and an atlas, which is nothing but the collection of charts that you can make, forms a manifold. So at this point we have a manifold, and we will be mostly talking about smooth manifolds. So here an important point goes into this atlas. So the intuition is that given a suppose a three-dimensional space, you can describe the three-dimensional space by Cartesian coordinates, that is drawing charts, that is drawing something like this with which are always there in the graph paper. Or you can also describe using the polar coordinates r, theta, phi. These two descriptions, x, y, z or r, theta, phi, are both equivalent description, and these are what we call as charts. So I can look at R3 using Cartesian coordinates or polar coordinates, and these two different descriptions are what I call chart maps. And then I can translate from Cartesian to polar and polar to Cartesian, and these translations are called chart transition map. This atlas comprises of all those charts which are these x and y's, such that these transition maps are compatible infinite. This means these transitions map are infinitely many times differentiable. So that makes it a smooth manifold. Now given a smooth manifold, our next task will be to look at vectors over this smooth manifold. Why will we look at vectors? Because basically given a manifold, so if you have a manifold, you cannot do any physics. You cannot, suppose you have a trajectory of a object thrown over that manifold. You cannot do any physics with that by asking what is the velocity and all, unless you can bring that object's description to a proper chart. Because whenever you will, if you see, our brain automatically makes charts for us. So given an object thrown, we automatically think, well, this is a straight line and then the object is going like this and all those. But that doesn't actually takes place in the manifold, it takes place in the chart. And this distinction of manifold and chart will be very important. Like if we have a space-time manifold, then we can always go to a chart of time x, y, z, like that. So given all these properties, to study the vectors over a manifold, what is important is to take a closer look at vectors and tensorial properties. So let's start. So I already described in my previous video regarding vectors, which are vectors which you will always you may know, like even if you are in R3, you can define these arrows like vector, but I described them in a more abstract way. So anyway, given a vector space with a addition that is performed on the vector and a scalar multiplication under something called as a field, which will mostly be under real numbers, so you can scale a vector by a real number, you can look at functions that are linear, that preserves the vector properties here and here. So the linear functions are functions of this type: alpha, a vector v plus gamma, is alpha f of the vector v plus f of gamma. So these are just the linear functions. So these are f is linear. This is called f is linear. So given if you have a linear mapping like this, you can collect all such linear mappings and they themselves will form a vector space. It is a vector space of linear transformations. But you can do one more thing. What you can do is you can look at all the linear mappings from your vector space to the underlying field. So here the field is, I have written f here, so to the underlying field. So that kind of a map is called a covector space. So given a vector v, a map that takes it to an element in the underlying field is called a covector. A covector is a function that takes a vector to a underlying field. So if it is a real number, then it is like this. So this is what dual vectors are. So this is what dual vectors are. Now before coming to tensor, let's discuss about the dimensions of the vectors. So given you have a vector v, the dimension, the basis of a vector which determines the dimension is a subset of the vector space such that any vector can be written in terms of the subset S, and the zero vector belongs to the zero vector that belongs to the vector space finds an unique representation. What it means is that a vector v can be written as vi, ei, where these are the basis vectors. And I have already used the Einstein summation convention. So I am summing over this I index. And moreover, to be a set of basis vector, what must be true is that 0 equal to, if it is alpha I ei, that already implies alpha I equal to 0. These are the two properties for it to be a basis. One more point is that these alpha i's or these vi's, they are actually the numbers from the underlying field. So maybe if I give an arrow here and an arrow here, this is really a scalar. So that is what I have described here, and they belong to the underlying field. You can just read this part here. And given a vector, you can describe covectors, as I said, which acts on vector to give numbers, underlying field. So a covector can also have a basis such that if this is a basis of the covector S star, if the basis of the covector satisfies these properties that for each basis of vector this holds, then this is called a dual basis. So what this means is that given you have a basis, suppose you have E1 or suppose you have E2 and you have epsilon 1, then this will be 0, but epsilon 2 E2 is 1. This property, if you can find such a basis, you can always find such a basis in the covector space such that they follow this property, this delta, Kronecker delta function relation. And now, given all these properties, what is a tensor? A tensor is nothing but, it is an object, it is a function that eats p covectors, p copies of covectors and q copies of vector to give a number, to give an element of the underlying field. So I have written here, it's a linear map that eats this many covectors and this many vectors to give an element of the underlying field K. And collection of all possible linear maps forms a tensor space. And this is also a vector space. So a tensor space is a vector space, which is quite an odd notion of speaking. But anyway, the point is you can equip a tensor space by property of addition such that you can add two tensors by acting each of the tensor with corresponding. So you see, if I have to describe the addition of two tensors, then I can act them on a set of covectors and set of vectors. So you can see first set is covector, second set is vector. So so these W's are the covectors and these all are the vectors, and they can be described precisely in this manner where this addition is in the underlying real number field or the any field on which they belong. So the main point of tensors are tensor they are linear maps that takes covectors and vectors and gives them to real number. So an important point is that, so two important points are that, first, suppose you have a vector v which can be written as VIEI. So this is a vector v, so this is how it is written. Now you can act with a dual vector on the vector v. This is a basis and this belongs to V star, which is the dual space. And what will this give? This will be EI, EI VJ EJ equal to VJ delta IJ equal to VI. So using the basis of the dual space, you can extract the components of the vectors. One more important property is the property of tensors. Suppose you have a 1-1 tensor. So a 1-1 tensor T, a 1-1 tensor will eat one covector. I can write it in this form. So let's see. So I have a omega I epsilon I. It can eat a vector Vj Ej. And now here comes the important part. As this tensor is a linear map, the scalar associated here and here they will jump out. So I have omega I Vj T epsilon I Ej. And you can see the summation, Einstein's summation convention is still working, precisely because of the fact of we are dealing with vectors and they are linear objects. Now let's look at this. I can just write it as omega I Vj T I J. So this is an important notational property. I mean, this is really a notation that I can write the tensors in this form as you have seen here. So this notation will be again refined in terms of your tensor products, and finally will be very useful because you can already see the way the indices look. They are already looking like arrangement which we generally perform the calculations of general relativity. So this is all for tensors. So the important part is that there is a vector space, and corresponding to a vector space you can define a dual vector space, and using the vector space and the dual vector space you can define tensors which are just linear maps that takes you to a number in a field, and then the collection of tensors can be arranged to another vector space. So that's all for this video.